What's good, YouTube, man? I'm back with another video, and today we got another part of the trial, bro. Listen, from what I witnessed today, I watched it earlier. I watched the ending of it earlier. I'm gonna see if I can see some extra stuff today, or right now in this moment. Now, let me fix this. Hold on. But all I know is Melly's coming home. 2020. I don't want to say 2023, 2024, but he coming home. He beating this, bro. From what I witnessed today in that courtroom, he came up. Like, he literally came up, chat. Listen, I'm gonna let y'all see from my perspective how I felt about it. But ain't no way he'll come home, bro. Ain't no way. Listen, his lawyers, I bet he paying each of them tens of millions of dollars, dog. There's no way he's not, because listen, it's at least $30 million going to his lawyers. They good. They good. Let's see how good.
Sure as I could predict that Tuesday comes after Monday, I made sure to stay up till 2 o'clock last night to get these cases, to alert the court to what was the state's obvious intention. To put a witness on there for the purpose of introducing out of court.
We talked about this earlier. My bad. I'm sorry I paused it, but we're going to get to it. There's no motive for him to kill his two best friends. But there's motive for them to go against him against this case. Like,
Statements that are otherwise...
Because he's rich and famous. They want him to be the cause.
Instead of at least admitting that that was what the state intended to do it, advanced a ruse pretext that they were seeking to do so under 8035.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Turns out that 8035, given the witness's testimony, could not be employed. And so the state then went back to plan one, the original one all along, of the state reading evidence from written documents and out-of-court statements, including police reports.
Hold on. My bad.
Of the state.
That boy academics was saying she thick. He was like, she thick.
From written documents and out-of-court statements, including police reports, statements on Instagram, arguments being had into the record. Through the state's own mouth, knowing very well that it was improper, that the court had ruled that it should not and could not be done, and it does not somehow become relevant because they declare hostility, which they knew about from the inception. The state made a representation to this court that it was a complete surprise. That's not a credible statement. I think it is incumbent upon this court to discern the veracity of that contention. There was a witness there.
But he getting all his money with this with him saying this, bro. Bro, like, I don't even know the words he's using, but the lawyer do. I mean, the judge do.
Lawyer. He's present. The state is essentially trying to circumvent the rules, circumvent the order of this court, and testify to this jury about documents and information that it wanted to put before the jury, which it found no permissible way to do. The court warned the state, I don't want you trying to go through the back door, but you can't get through the front door, and they launched immediately into that pursuit. The jury sat there while the state made implication after implication, introduced admissible evidence after admissible evidence to the substantial.
What does admissible mean?
Defendant. And so, not only did they do it after we raised the issue, they did it after the court ruled against the state and admonished the state not to do just that. And they launched into that pursuit. Mr. Devins has been prejudiced. This jury sat there and watched this fiasco unfold with at least 10, maybe 15 sidebars after every 2 questions.
Hey, no, literally, I'm gonna let y'all see. But okay, when she was up there examining the witness or however you call it, bro, they kept having to say, oh, what's that thing called? Something. They was saying like objection, that everything she was saying, they kept having to do sidebars so she can like stop doing all this weird stuff to the witness. She was yelling at the witness one time. She was like that, like coming to, bro, I swear that it was strange. They gonna count this as a mistrial, bro.
With the implications that were being all predicated on the implications and the inadmissible testimony that Ms. Bradley herself read into and spoke into the record. And for that reason, we think that it was deliberate, it is highly prejudicial, this jury has been tainted, and we move for a mistrial.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, there's one more thing. If you don't mind, I'll have Mr. Alistine articulate what that means.
This is your motion for Mr. Armstrong?
That boy speak. Listen, that boy speak proper English like crazy. He say, what he said.
Alistine articulate what that
Articulate.
This is your motion for Mr. Armstrong?
Yes, it's our motion for mistrial.
This is the second one. All right, go ahead.
Well, it's the second one. Judge, in my entire career, I've never heard the state imply with no evidence whatsoever that the defense team would take care of this witness. And even though the court gave that instruction and told them to ignore it, that question, the defense team would take care of you if you answered like this, is so improper. Not only does it taint our client,
It tainted the witness.
on the other questions, but it taints everybody at this table.
It does.
And despite the judge, Your Honor's instruction to ignore it, it's pretty hard to ignore something like that. When their entire questioning for the last 30, 40 minutes have been so improper, and the court told them not to do it. And they proceeded and proceeded and proceeded. We're moving for a mistrial.
And just for the record, Your Honor, I personally
but it threw the book.
seen Ms. Holmes in the flesh or spoken to her twice ever at that deposition and today. Never by phone, never by text, couldn't distinguish her from a can of paint until she showed up for the depot, and I haven't spoken to her since, so just to let the court know there is no factual predicate for the implication, or not implication, the accusation made by the state that the defense sought to take care of her.
And the same for me. I met her at the depot and saw her today.
For the record, it was my first time ever seeing her in my life.
Thank you. All done, guys? Counsel?
Yes.
And why? Hold on. Why she stood up and said that? Look.
I met her at the depot and saw her today.
For the record, it was my first time ever seeing her in my life.
Hey, ain't gonna lie. They say Melly hitting that. They say Melly hitting that. Y'all think they hitting? You think he knocking them boots back? Ain't gonna lie. They was saying like, if you been locked down for 5 years, you ain't hitting that. Be honest. If I was, let me not say that.
Yes.
I would hit that for sure. If 5 years, come on.
The statements that were in the records are what was used as impeachment, where it says they said that they were going to take care of us. Defense read into it and implied it meant it was never said the defense team in any way, shape, or form. So defense implied or read into that in some additional context that was not intended in any way, shape, or form.
this dude right here was about to take off. He was about to go off, bro. He was ready to just, you know what I'm saying? He was ready to wig out. And the black dude had to say, hey, chill, calm down.
I was basing it on based in the records and the statements that this witness made and put forth in her Instagram account
He looked like he'll take care of her for real.
about this case on that, and it's very, in terms of the forming the questions, Your Honor, it was understood that I was put under very strict and difficult conditions to formulate any question, because defense obviously wants to limit, because they know the contents of what this individual has said and all of the statements that she has made that are damaging to their client. Hence why the state would be seeking to use her as a witness.
That means nothing, Your Honor. The fact that it's damaging, I'll concede that. It's inadmissible. And the status of this impression that there is a catch-all, we're only trying to seek justice and do good exception to all the rules of evidence. And there is no such thing. If it's admissible, admit it through an admissible procedure. You don't try and end around the court's order and the case law by coming in onto some pretext and doing exactly what I told the court would happen and create an entire prejudicial fiasco and introduce inadmissible evidence into the record. That's what occurred, and this jury has been irreparably prejudiced. Or Mr. Demon's interests have been irreparably prejudiced before this jury.
Let's see. I want to show y'all this. But they've been smiling and laughing this whole trial, bro. Listen, tell me he ain't hitting that, bro. Look at her eyes, bro. She's like, ooh, I'm finna get it. And he like, ooh, I'm finna give it to you.
Did your daughter tell you?
This is Ynw Melly's ex-girlfriend's mom.
Did you have a conversation with your daughter about what happened on October 26th of 2018?
Yes, I asked her if she knew anything about that.
This is what happened before that last clip. I know I'm going backwards, but hey.
Did she tell you what happened? Without? No, she did
Just
not.
so she didn't know.
Have you ever made a statement that is different than that?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Your Honor, we'd object to lack of foundation, calls for hearsay, speculation, unless they can establish that that witness was present.
Thank you. Objection noted. That's what I previously ruled on sidebar. Proceed to your approach.
Showing me your messages from Instagram from February 5th of 2021.
Who was that Instagram? Is that the one the Instagram stands with Portland?
Ma'am,
I don't
sorry.
remember. I don't remember that Instagram.
Look at it.
I already looked at it. You want to show it to me?
So is the
I don't remember that. You showed it to me like 3 times already.
Disgruntled witness.
I don't recall making that statement. No.
Excuse me, one at a time, please. Let her finish her answer before you ask the next question.
So you don't recall making that statement?
No, I don't.
Disgruntled witness thrown out. That's done. That's done.
So
This
you don't
witness is.
recall saying,
Sustained.
so Ms. Holmes, in terms, you said that your daughter didn't tell you.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
So did you ever make a statement that's different than that?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Into the statements that with regards to October 26th of 2018. Is it your testimony to the jury that you remember coming to Fort Lauderdale?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained. Listen, I just want one of you making objections. Whoever's going to handle those
Yes,
witnesses.
sir.
All
I
right?
apologize.
They both.
Is it your testimony you don't remember why you came down?
I told you why I came down.
Okay, why is that?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Ms. Holmes, have you ever,
She should say, "Do you mind elaborating?"
let me rephrase.
Done. Done. It's taking too long. You're taking too long. You're taking too long. Get y'all popcorn ready,
Did
bro.
your daughter ever threaten to cooperate with law enforcement?
Objection.
Objection. Objection. Sidebar.
Did you threaten to cooperate with law enforcement?
Objection, asked and answered.
Different question.
Why don't you come sidebar? I want to see the question, please.
Ms. Holmes, did you ever make any statements about what happened on October 26th of 2018?
Objection. Asked and answered.
I don't know what statement you're talking about. Rephrase the question to a specific.
Ms. Holmes, did you ever make any statements specific to what was happening in the car on October 26th of 2018 prior to the
That's the
homicide?
answer. She can't even answer anything.
I still come on sidewalk, please.
So,
Watch this. Watch her body language.
were you present when your daughter spoke with law enforcement?
She was 17, I had been present.
Do you recall about when that happened?
If she was 17, that had to happen in 2018.
Okay. Without getting into what she said on that. Do you remember where that statement was taken?
No, I don't.
She's fumbling. She's fumbling crazy. Even the judge getting annoyed.
When you came down to Fort Lauderdale, was your daughter concerned for Mr. Dennis?
Objection. Cause for a conclusion on part of this witness.
Based on your daughter's demeanor,
She was
how was she acting?
Sustained.
When you arrived,
She can't even question the witness, dog. I'm telling you, they in there, bro.
in Fort Lauderdale and saw Mr. Dennis, did you ask him what happened?
Objection.
What's the
Asked and
objection?
answered.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
When you arrived in Fort Lauderdale, did you ask Mr. Dennis what had happened?
No, I did not.
Nothing further.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
You came here and one of your first, let me get it.
Objection, Your Honor, improper.
I haven't asked you.
Excuse me, counsel, you direct your comments to.
I'm sorry, I haven't asked anything yet.
Ask your question.
When you first took the stand, you said, I feel threatened.
Yes, sir, I did.
Who do you feel threatened by?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Christine Bradley in the prosecutor's office.
This prosecutor.
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Hey, that boy about to scrap that lady, bro.
Anything else to this witness?
Yes, sir. Ms. Holmes?
Yes.
You said you feel threatened by
Of
me.
course.
Okay. Did you fail to appear for numerous court appearances?
No, you never served me. You lied.
Okay.
You lied to the court.
And with regards to, did you work in Redding, California?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Immaterial.
She said you lied to the court. It's crazy.
Overruled.
Hold on,
And-
let's see
in,
what she said.
Redding, California.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Immaterial.
Did you work in Redding, California?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Immaterial.
Overruled.
And so that was a location you were at?
That's why I was traveling nurse at. Yes.
Okay. And in terms of the prosecution, you have been served on various occasions to testify.
You served me a subpoena on November to be the next week, and I was in California, 10 hours away. It wasn't even served correctly.
And prior to that, you were served with a subpoena in
Never served
February of 2019.
You never served me. I know you served me to a location I didn't live at anymore.
Do you recall coming to the courthouse in February of 2019?
Objection beyond the scope.
Excuse me.
Anything about the courthouse in
Excuse me. Come
2019.
sidebar, sir.
You even went so far as to hire an attorney
Yes,
to
I
try
did.
not.
Look at her hands.
I sure did.
And has the state offered you any money?
The state basically has me on a monitor. I have to go to my job with this. It's embarrassing. People think I'm a criminal. The state has run my life.
And in terms of your feelings and ill will towards the state and myself,
I just feel like you lock up innocent people.
and does that influence your testimony today?
It's not influencing my testimony.
Have
No,
you-
I'm telling
Have you,
you.
that's not.
I don't
that's
understand.
not a
Excuse me, hold on. Only one of you can talk at a time. You ask the question, counsel, you answer it, and when you let her finish her question, and then when she starts answering the question, you let the witness answer her question, all right?
Yes, Your Honor. So my question was non-responsive on that one.
Ask your question.
So, Ms. Holmes, in terms of the court order that was issued,
Yes.
you're aware that that was found to be valid?
No, I'm not aware of that at all.
Okay. You hired an attorney to go and represent you at the 4th District Court of Appeals?
He had to hire an attorney because he tried to get him this far.
And no, that's a false statement.
Objection.
Excuse me, counsel, you're not testifying.
I
all right?
agree on
You
that.
excuse me, you asked a question, all right? That's it, you asked the question.
Let it
And
ride.
so, Ms. Holmes, with regards to that, you hired an attorney,
Yes.
and you then tried to get any sort of court order requiring you to be here
Yes,
in
sir.
court thrown out.
No, what I did was I hired an attorney because you were saying you served me the subpoena that you never served.
And that was found to be valid.
You never served me a subpoena that was you never served me.
Oh.
I've never seen a subpoena from you from those addresses that you said you served. Those are not my addresses.
Your testimony said you have never been served to appear in court.
Objection,
I
asked
served,
and
I've never
answered.
Sustain, excuse me, sustain.
And so, with regards to
Hold on, let me get back into it because the video stopped, but she literally put her hand up to the judge. Look, she forgot she was in court. Hold on.
your feeling threatened on them, have I ever any sort of physical violence against you?
Hold on.
Sustain. Excuse me.
You saw her hand? Look at her hand.
Appear in court.
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustain. Excuse me, sustain.
You saw.
And so, with regards to your feeling threatened on them, have I ever any sort of physical violence against you? Do you have any written threats from me?
It's intimidating. You've intimidated me this whole time.
Intimidating.
And
Great.
in terms of your participation in this case,
Yes.
you understand that you were served a subpoena to appear here today.
You served a subpoena after you arrested me. You
And
served
you,
a subpoena at the jail when I was in Brown County.
and you understand you are here pursuant to that court order.
I'm here.
And that requires, under the law, to comply with court orders and that
And
compel
I've-
attendance of witnesses.
I've been complying.
And nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further?
No, sir.
Thank you. This witness excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You're
This is. I'm about to also react to the ballistic guy because they said something about ballistics.
Sure as I could predict.
Something about ballistics. They questioned him. I didn't see that part. Something about they ripped the witness.
Called holding it tight. That could affect.
I really ain't see it. I know it started in the middle, but I didn't know why.
Testimony, I think you should hand out certificates. Fundamental identification of dealing with firearms.
This is 100% proof he's coming home, bro. If this trial keeps
So
going
you
like
got
this.
a lot of certificates to hand out. Fair enough? Okay. You examined these projectiles and casings on 2 different dates, correct?
Correct.
One was on, I think your report was 1/11,
Correct.
and the other one was on 3/3 of 22.
Correct.
1/11 of 2019, and then 3/3 of 2022.
Correct.
Could you tell us, beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt after all of this examination, how many firearms created these casings and projectiles?
So what I can say is that one firearm fired the casings. So one firearm produced the cartridge cases that were submitted. And as far as the projectiles are concerned, I can say that 2 of them came from one firearm, and then the other ones could have come from the same firearm, but I cannot conclusively say that there was only.
Okay, so there could be
Done.
more than one firearm that created all of these items, correct?
As far as the projectiles, yes.
Okay.
For a fact. Let's
Fair
go.
enough. Now, after you did all of this analysis, were you able to determine what gun was used to create these projectiles and casings?
No, in the absence of a firearm, I cannot conclusively say it was one or the other.
Have you heard the term trajectory reconstruction?
Yes.
What is that?
So that's typically an examination that's done using either rods, some people use lasers, to match points on a line that would designate the trajectory of the projectiles that was tracked in.
And that would be able to place, supposedly, if you can do it, where the shooter or shooters were when they fired the firearms.
Certainly, at least the firearm.
Oh.
So it would be the muzzle of the firearm is technically the origin point.
Okay.
Yes.
And that would be in someone's hand,
Somebody's
correct?
Right.
Let me see that. What we're talking about is being able to tell where the muzzle was, so you in essence would be able to tell where the shooter.
Correct. Yes.
I just wanted to play with you.
No problem.
See, he's good. He's good, actually. For him to get heated like that, he gotta be.
When you do a trajectory reconstruction, and you're attempting to find out where the gun is and where the so-called shooter or shooters were, are there certain variables that come into play?
Certainly, there's a lot of variables that come into play.
Why don't you tell us what some of the variables are?
So some of the variables that come into play is whether or not there were intervening objects. So do you have a beginning and an end point? Do you have a middle point? Right. So if I only have, as an example, a hole in a wall, but I don't have anything else, I don't have somewhere I could put a rod through, or that I could start the directionality of a laser from. Right. So without that, I'm basically dead in the water, because I could start it from any point in this room. So let's say there's a bullet hole in that exit sign back there, and that's the only hole that I have. It'd be very difficult for me to be able to place where the person originated from. Now, if an object is, let's say, three-dimensional, not two-dimensional, and the bullet trapped the firearm is the question.
How about how the, may I approach, I'm sorry, how the person held the gun?
Sure.
There's a thing called holding it tight.
Mm-hmm.
That could affect how you position the shooter or shooters, correct?
Sure.
If he holds it upside down or sideways,
The origin point should technically still be the same,
okay.
technically speaking.
Okay. How about, you said tight, how about if he holds it very loose?
If you limp wrist, that's what we would call it.
What's that term?
Limp wristing.
You're way
Yes.
above me. Limp
Yeah.
wrist.
Yeah. So normally when you're firing a firearm, you want to try to cradle the weight of the firearm, and that's usually in your wrist. Limp wristing is just you're letting your wrist kind of rock with the firearm. And so while the origin point may be similar, the trajectory of the projectile leaving the barrel may be different.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay.
How about the weather conditions?
So as far as trajectory is concerned, it can play a role over significant distance. So whether, I'm sure most of us have heard or seen stories of people making sniper shots at a mile or a quarter mile or 3/4 of a mile. When you're shooting at distances like that, you have to take into account weather, wind. You actually have to take into account the rotation of the earth. So the people who can shoot out at that distance are exceptionally rare. But to be accurate at those distances, you have to be able to mitigate for gravity, wind, and for the spinning of the earth. So those are factors that can play a role in significant distance. If you're talking about a distance of 2 feet or 3 feet, then the weather's going to play a much less significant role.
How about the object that the projectile hits?
Yes, I can certainly.
Like glass?
Right, so whether it's glass, and the type of glass plays a role. Is it impact glass? Is it tempered glass? Is it standard glass? So all of these things can play a role. Is it a thicker pane of glass? Is it bulletproof glass? Is it soundproof glass? So I mean, there's a lot of different variabilities. And then obviously the thickness of that glass plays a role. The thicker the glass is, the more likely that the projectile is going to be significantly damaged.
Listen, if this boring y'all, bro, just let me know, bro, because I'm enjoying this, bro. I wanna hear him say he's right.
And change its flight.
I want
after it
to
leaves
know
that glass.
why and
Also,
W
the
free.
angle of impact where it hits the glass can change
I
after
like
it
his
travels
music.
through. But you might have a projectile that's traveling straight at glass, and then after it passes through the projectile, through the glass, it can travel downward, it can travel upwards. It all depends on the angles of the glass and the angle that the projectile was approaching the glass at.
How about the grain weight of the ammunition?
So the of the projectile itself.
Yeah.
So that can play a role because obviously the heavier an object is, with the force being applied to it, the more likely it is to stay in its directed path. That's kind of going back to that sniper scenario. That's why most snipers are using very large calibers. They are more likely to stay in flight longer and be less subjected to these changes than lighter, smaller projectiles.
And if the shooting occurred inside a car, for instance, would the arm length matter of the so-called shooter or shooters,
It could.
and whether or not the person was leaning in one direction?
Sure. Yeah, you're working in a very small environment.
Okay, so there's a lot of variables that one must take into consideration
Yes.
before you say where the gun was or where the shooter or shooters were when they fired this firearm.
Right.
And if you don't take those variables into consideration, you're just giving a estimate of where everybody was, correct?
I assume so. I mean, I'd have to see the situation, but yes.
Okay. And you would consider that to be not proof beyond into the
Protecting your life.
As a manager of the Broward Sheriff's Office tool and, what's the title, tool and?
Fireman tool work unit.
Okay. You certainly would want to take all those variables in before you told this jury or any jury.
Yeah, scientifically, I would want to make sure that I'm accounting for as many variables as possible whenever rendering an opinion.
Otherwise, it would be just a guess, an
Yes.
estimate, right?
Right. I want to give a scientifically valid opinion.
Fair enough. Could I have one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Hey, that's the end of that, man. It's some more stuff happening. I want y'all to be here for it. Y'all make sure y'all drop a like, a comment, subscribe, and I think he's coming home, so he's free Melly. I don't know why I just did that. I'm not a gang member, bro. I did not do it. I just was throwing up like, listen, I'm nowhere near gang affiliated. I promise. Love y'all. Peace out.